It is IAS Kannada Vaini. As usual, it is IAS 2020 preliminary question follows and question analysis begins here. This program is sponsored by SG Career Academy Sirsi. So today's question is on Indian polity. Quasi-federal nature of Indian polity has some novel features. It has borrowed both from internal and external sources. Identify the correct source. That is the question. So about the federal structure of the Indian Constitution, we have asked the question. So four probable statements are given, like Indian history. Sources are like Indian history, British traditions and customs, developments during freedom struggle, polity of the Canada. Which of the above statements are correct? I think all of you know the difference between federal structure and quasi-federal structure, as well as like the unitary state. Federal structure, in the federal structure, the state, the units of the federalism or federal state have come together voluntarily. That is the basic feature, and they get their power from the common source in the form of the constitution. Whereas in the quasi-federal state, in the normal circumstances, it is a federal structure or federal state. In the special circumstances, in case of emergency, it will become somewhat like unitary state. Third one is exactly like unitary state, where federal units will not be there. They are absent. Only throughout the country, only one government or the rule of the government will run. One government will run. Then it is called unitary. The examples for these respective examples are, for a federal state, it is a USA. Quasi-federal, it is India. And for unitary polity, it is Britain. So these are the three examples. Coming to the Indian context, the quasi-federal nature of the Indian polity, in special circumstances, in the form of like emergencies, it will become unitary state. Whereas in the normal circumstances, all the states will get or derive their powers from the constitution. And in framing of this quasi-federal state, which are the sources inspired the constitution makers, or they have taken into consideration while framing the quasi-federal structure? First one, if we take the Indian history, for example, in the medieval or ancient Indian history, there were several invasions on Indian state or in the Indian country. Maybe starting from even Aryans, Greeks, Muslims, English, etc. That is what we take. So whenever there was a lack of central authority, whenever there was a lack of the total solid or powerful center, India was attacked by invaders. India was attacked by the foreign forces, foreign rulers. So definitely that was one of the consideration, that you make central government or like federal government stronger. So medieval Indian or like ancient Indian lessons made the framers of the constitution to have some kind of quasi-federal state. So that is the first part. Coming to the second part, that is British traditions and customs. Already I have told, Britain is not a federal state. It is a unitary state. So we have not taken the specific examples, you can say like prototype from the British polity that is into the Indian quasi-federal state. So definitely that may not be the source. Third one is developments during the freedom struggle. Development in the sense not like simply like incidents, like movements like 1920, 1930 or 1942. It is the constitutional development what we take, or the constitutional developments are to be taken into consideration. For example, 1935 Act, that is Government of India Act 1935, has some or had some federal features. So those federal features are definitely taken into the federal nature of the Indian polity, the present Indian polity. Therefore, definitely the developments during the freedom struggle is considered. Then fourth one is polity of the Canada. In Canada, the powers are distributed between center and state, and also there is some kind of the distribution of the list, like the central list, state list, or like concurrent list, etc. So that is the model for making the federal state, that is in Indian part also. Therefore, A, C and D, these are the three factors inspired the framers of the constitution to make India into the quasi-federal state. Therefore, the correct answer will be C. A, C and D only. For this question, it is A, C and D only. Then one more the term is there, that is Union of States. Whereas in the Indian context, many of the states during 1948 or 49, they were not willing to accede to the Indian Union or Indian state. Then they were forcibly taken into the our federal structure. Therefore, it is called like Union of States. There was a lack of some kind of voluntariness. Therefore, India is called like Union of States. One more thing is that is unwritten constitution. The unwritten constitution is a good example, that is Britain, where mainly like rules, traditions dominate. There is no specific constitution in the Britain. So in some countries, even though they have got the democracies, they are having the unwritten constitution.